welcome back. So we started here, so we'll just continue. The reign of Amenemhet III is likely to have started in 815-59 to 60 BC of the 12th dynasty. There are indications that Amenemhet III and his father Senuseret III shared a co-regency of several years. Joseph was 17 years old when he was sold into slavery. So we're trying to use Egyptian history and the Bible to calculate when the date of Joseph's birth, around when Joseph would have been born. So the Bible mentions in Genesis 41:1 that from the time when Joseph in Genesis 40:15 interpreted the dream of the chief butler and pleaded that his situation being made known unto Pharaoh, that 2 full years had gone by until Pharaoh had his 2 dreams, after which, in verse 46 of Genesis 41, we read that Joseph was 30. He would have been about 27 when he was thrown into prison. This is a significant event, and we can calculate that from 27 years old, 10 years after he had come to Egypt in what was likely 1865 BC, that he would live to another 83 years in Egypt before dying in 1772. So the date of his birth would have been, he lived 110 years, it would have been 1882 BC. Remember that when we are going before BC, we have to count down. We have to count. We have to do things differently than if we were calculating dates after BC. We can say with some certainty that the 430 years began with the imprisonment of Joseph. And from the imprisonment until the death, from that imprisonment until the death of Tutmosis III is 430 years. It is not a coincidence that this is the same number the Bible mentions in Exodus 12:40. That's interesting. Oh, there we go. First, Joseph at 17 was a slave beginning in 1865. Then, starting in 1855, 10 years later, he was a prisoner for 3 years, and then prime minister around 1852. If Joseph was 27 in 1855, then he would have been born in 1882 BC. The 12th dynasty ends in 1802 BC, which would make Joseph 80 years old when the 12th dynasty ended. He would have lived 30 years into the 13th dynasty. Joseph became a prisoner in addition to being a slave in 1855, around 10 years before his brothers came in to around 1845 BC. This is a significant enough event to start the 430 years of the children of Israel being slaves, strangers and slaves in a land that was not theirs. Once again, I take no credit for the fact that all these numbers are not in disagreement. I have undertaken a lot of research, but I believe that God has helped me to draw these conclusions, and I'm still keeping it a matter of prayer. There is unverified speculation that Ephraim succeeded his father Joseph as vizier in the court of the pharaohs of the 13th dynasty. The 13th dynasty was fragmentary in some respects, and sometimes vaguely lumped together with the 14th, 15th, and 16th, and perhaps 17th dynasties, none of which ruled a united Egypt. Okay, let's start here because I had a little bit of redundancy. The Hyksos and the 17th dynasty are often synonymous. We have a lot of information about the 12th dynasty into 18th dynasty, but less information regarding dynasties 13 through 16. This fragmented collection of dynasties and rulers lasted for 154 years until the Hyksos Israelites. Joseph lived 33 years into the 13th dynasty, which began in 1803 BC. If you deduct 33 from 154, the number would be, and my math's slightly off here, 124. From the death of Joseph, the collection of dynasties, 13, 14, 15, 16, would last for 124 years until the Hyksos Israelites. So we have 83 years for Joseph living in the land of Egypt from 1855 BC, when he was imprisoned, until his death 83 years later in 1772. We have 124 years from the death of Joseph until the Hyksos Israelites. We have 100 years for the Israelite Hyksos, and we have 26 years for the 18th dynasty until the death of Pharaoh Tutmosis III in